I was talking with someone the other day and they were looking at buying a restaurant. And one of the things that they said to me was, hey, these guys aren't even using any of those delivery apps. That's going to be the first thing that I add on. And I asked, will that help the restaurant make any more money? And you should have seen the look on his face because for people that aren't familiar with the restaurant industry and how delivery apps work, there can be some real shocks. So today I'm going to ask the question, do delivery apps actually destroy restaurants? Stay tuned. We're going to dig into it.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses while controlling risk. So, if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So, be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win.
All right. So we're going to dive into the world of delivery apps today. I did a whole bunch of research. And then over the weekend, I had coffee with a buddy of mine who's owned several different restaurants and has some firsthand experience both in his own operations as well as coaching and consulting with other people that are in the restaurant trade. So there's going to be some new stuff in here for people that aren't familiar with the restaurant industry. But I want you to imagine this. Imagine a restaurant that normally has a $100 order and they've got food costs and labor costs and all kinds of other costs that go into their direct costs. And normally they have a gross profit. So this is like their earnings beyond direct costs only of about $40 on that $100 order. Now that $40 doesn't go in the owner's pocket. That's the money that's going to contribute towards the rent and the insurance and the utility bills and all the other sort of overhead expenses. Okay. So $100 sale is going to bring in 40 bucks after labor, food costs, etc. Now, imagine someone else quietly taking 20 to $30 of that $40 gross profit. That is the scenario that a lot of restaurateurs face when it comes to the question of whether or not they should use delivery apps and how they should manage their relationships with delivery apps because the commissions can be huge. We're going to be talking about delivery apps in general today, but you probably know the names. You see the advertisements, you see them everywhere. You see stickers on restaurants that you go to advertising you can find their food on these apps. And many of you who are young enough, you probably don't remember a time when there was a different way that you could order food from a restaurant and have it delivered. And we're going to be talking about that as well today. So, brief background, the whole value proposition of these delivery apps is that it creates this chain of relationships. So the customer goes to the app it recruits and organizes the drivers for the deliveries, and they then bring this to the restaurant and say, "Hey, if you want to sign up and put your menu on our app, we're going to be bringing you customers and we're going to take care of the drivers and we're going to promote your restaurant to the customers that we bring into our ecosystem. And this is going to be a source of business for you. It's going to be new money for your restaurant. If you have extra capacity in your restaurant, then you should sign up, right?" So it's a very enticing kind of pitch. How do people make money off of this? Well, let's talk about the revenue streams for the platforms. So they charge a commission on the sale price, typically anywhere between 15 and 30%, depending on where you are. Different governments now are starting to try to regulate this sort of thing. The customer is also typically going to pay a delivery or a service fee, typically $2 to $6. Plus, there might be a small order fee. I've seen this myself when I've ordered like a pizza, and it's like, oh, you just ordered one 12-inch pizza. Like you're going to have to pay an extra dollar to get us to deliver it, right? That's extra money that goes to the delivery app. Now, understanding they're going to pay the driver. Like I get it, right? So there's got to be a certain minimum amount of money in there. And then there's also advertising and preferred placement fees. So within the ecosystem of the app, when someone goes in there, there's different ways that the app can promote one restaurant over another. And this is an added revenue stream for the app because they get to sell these marketing packages to the restaurateurs to try to encourage, them to spend money to get the placement up, as far as suggestions and things like that for people who use the app. And there are different kind of packages that restaurants can sign up for, with the light ones being around 15% commission. Um, for skip the dishes, one of the bits of research that I found here was that they typically are charging between 20 and 30% commission per order. That's according to the Restaurant Success blog. Um, so this idea that the customers are out there, they're hungry, and of course there's an app for that. So they go looking for an app, and then the app recruits the driver, and then they're going to bring this to the restaurateur. This is the sales pitch that the app uses, right? And they go to the restaurant and they say, "Hey, you should sign up with our app because we're going to bring this stuff to you." So, why does a restaurant want to sign up for the app? I'll give you some key points about why people might want to do this and why they might think it's a good idea. So increased reach and sales channel. So a restaurant might think, hey, I'm going to get in front of new people that don't know me if I do this. And I potentially could, if I'm like a little takeout on one side of town, maybe I'm going to make some delivery orders to the other side of town, people who don't normally order from me. So, I'm extending my reach to new areas, right? That's one kind of idea. Number 2, built-in marketing. So being on these apps might mean that I can cut out a bunch of other activities that I'm doing, and it could simplify my operational experience, right? Um, then there's the operational convenience of how the orders come in. I don't know if you remember or not, but back in the day, if you wanted to order a pizza, you'd have to call a certain phone number, and sometimes you get a busy signal, right? Sometimes you couldn't get through. Sometimes you'd call and call and call, and then maybe at the busy time of day, they would actually have multiple people just taking orders, and they would probably be writing the orders down on some kind of sheet. And then there could be some confusion, errors, mistakes in that order taking process that would ultimately result in wastage, etc. With these apps, it's operationally streamlined. I was in a restaurant the other day when I heard the little chime go off, sorry, on the iPad, which meant that another one of these delivery app orders had come in, and they're always consistently in the same format. So it's very easy for the staff to understand, put the order together, etc. And then there's data, right? When back in the day with phone calls and handwritten orders, any kind of restaurateur that wanted to have data or analyze their business would have to like put all of that information into a computer to then try to do some kind of analysis, to figure out what was happening in their business. With the apps can give the restaurateurs a dashboard that kind of shows like here's the order volume at the time of day, and this is what people are ordering the most of, and this is where your customers are, where you're delivering to, et cetera. And so it can be very data rich. So that's attractive, obviously, to some restaurateurs who want to become smarter about how they operate. They want information. So on the surface, for a lot of restaurateurs, this can really seem like found money. Like it's like, oh, there's all these positives. Of course, I should sign up for it. So, in the old days, I mean, I used to be a Yellow Pages sales rep, and back in those days, there was a pizza section of the phone book in the Yellow Pages. There was also a Chinese food section in the Yellow Pages. There was a general restaurant section in the Yellow Pages, and I made a ton of commission off of this one strategy. You want to know what it was? I would go to these food operators and I would say, "Hey, um, how long do you spend on the phone when someone calls in to make an order, either for pickup or delivery? Like, do you end up answering questions and explaining your menu and talking about the different prices, etc.?" And a lot of them would nod and go, "Yeah, sometimes you're on the phone for 10 minutes and you know that there's other people trying to call in." And so what I would propose was, hey, why don't we create some yellow page specials, and we'll actually create like a mini menu right in the phone book, and then people can call in and just say, I want yellow page special number 3. And it'll do 2 things for you. It'll streamline the ordering process, and it will give you that important data point to let you know that people are using the ad you paid for, right? And yeah, I got a lot of people to move from very small ads up to big half page ads and stuff so that they could put more of this kind of information in. Now, Was the Yellow Pages doing the same kind of thing that the delivery apps are doing today? Well, it was trying to do that marketing function. It was still up to the restaurant to, take the order themselves, to get the delivery done either through a delivery service, or some of them would even have their own drivers on staff for busy times of day, in particular times of the week, like Friday and Saturday night. That ad in the Yellow Pages would be a fixed overhead expense for them. They'd be paying every month for that big ad that they would have. And so would it work? Would it not work? Like, I can tell you, over the course of time that I was doing it, there were many, many restaurateurs who every year, once I got them into that kind of ad, uh, they wouldn't be talking about cutting the size of the ad. They would just meet with me to, like, review the changes they wanted in the text of the ad, because maybe they wanted to change some of the things or change the prices or something or other. So I know that it worked quite well for quite some time. And of course, what changed was is that everyone migrated from using old school phones in the phone book to using smartphones that have apps. And this is how it's changed, right? So here's the other issue, though, if you think about this. Um, where do all these customers come from? Because it's not like there was a world of people who were hungry that just didn't know how to solve their problem before, until an app came along to solve their problem, right? So how did the hungry mobile phone users get fed before? Well, they were probably going to restaurants too, right? They were getting food delivered, they were going to restaurants. And so what has happened is a cannibalization for a lot of these people. The first time I ran across this was I was dealing with a pizzeria owner in Ontario, and I asked him, this was years ago, "Are you on these apps?" And he told me, he said, "No," because at the time, they used to put in their contracts that the pricing had to be the same in store and on the app. We're gonna talk about pricing in a minute. But he said, "I'll cut my margin, but part of the contract is I have to put their sticker on my door. And so when people come in to pick up a pizza from me, I'm gonna have to tell them that they can now get the pizza from this app. And if my customers move to the app, I will just have given the margin from my own customer to this tech company." And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." And that was the first time I kind of got this idea that, hey, maybe these apps aren't entirely good for most restaurant owners. Let's talk more about the commission and fee stack that people have to pay. So I've already mentioned before, 15 to 30% commission typically. Um, then there are the hidden and indirect costs. So what ends up happening is people have to pay these extra fees for, like, product placement, for promotion, for advertising. Active Menus is a website that did a study, and they found that some of these third-party costs can actually exceed 40% of the food price to the restaurant in some situations. Practical guides and partner info often show 20 to 30% commissions is common for restaurants in Canada and the US. What else is hidden in the stack for restaurants? They pay commissions on the order subtotal, and they also pay separate fees for marketing, higher visibility. Order processing fees can also be included in there, as well as error adjustment fees. So sometimes you pay a credit card discount fee, and then if there's some kind of rebate or customer complaint or whatever, you have to suffer the charge back, but then you still have to pay the fee from the original charge, for example. And one of the problems that all restaurants have is that the challenge of putting together a menu and creating pricing is work. And so restaurateurs will often sit down and they'll figure out what their food costs are, and then they'll figure out what their margin needs to be, and then they'll figure out what their pricing should be on the menu as a result of that analysis. And then they'll figure out if they can do it, right? So sometimes you work the numbers and it says, "Hey, you need to charge 20.79 for this to get your margin." And the restaurateur looks at that and goes, I don't know if my customers will pay 20.79. I better dial that back to 19.99, right? Just because I want it to be under $20. And this is a challenge all business owners face, right? So you do the math, it comes up with a number, and then you wiggle it. Maybe you can bump it up to 21.99, maybe you dial it back to 19.99. But what then happens is you run with that cost and that menu price. In the meantime, though, the price of chicken goes up and down all the time. The price of beef goes up and down, or mostly up, I guess. But the price of a lot of things in the restaurant trade change, and it's difficult for restaurateurs to be on top of it all the time. And so when you have a menu that's been set, and then your food costs start to change, and you're paying such a high percentage of your sales to this outside operator, it's very easy to have the food cost change result in you actually losing money on some of these orders, right? So now you're actually doing all this work, you're doing all this busy stuff, and the only one who's profiting from your activity is the app, right? So for customers, for the people that are ordering the food, they often have to pay a delivery charge, they have to pay small order fees, and because that whole thing about you have to have the same price in the app and in the store, I think it might have become illegal in some places. So now you actually, as a restaurateur, can charge different prices on a lot of these apps. And so the smart restaurant operators are realizing, hey, like all of my margins going to the app, I should increase the price. So for the customer, they're now paying a higher price to use the app, and the transparency may not be there. But there's some investigations that I want to allude to. So the Guardian newspaper, they did some research, and they found that if they ordered groceries via the delivery app, they were up to 39% more expensive than if they went to the actual grocery store themselves. And they found that for uh, up to 39% more expensive with an average 11% price increase plus $5 to $11 delivery fee on top. So that's what the Guardian found in their study. New York Post also did a study, and they found that with McDonald's in particular, that an in-store meal that would normally have cost $36.95 on some of the delivery apps was as much as 62.36 for the same food, right? So the app gets a cut. Obviously, the delivery driver has to get paid too, and they have real expenses with their car and all that kind of stuff. The customer pays more, and the restaurant, if they manage to raise their prices and people are agreeing to pay it, they may be protecting their margin, but there could be some other costs, and we're going to get to that in a minute here. So let me give you a pricing example. So on a typical in-house dine-in or pickup order, we got a $40 food total, and the food cost might be 30%, which is 12 bucks. Labor and overhead might be $16. So the profit before tax could be 12 on this particular order, $12. That same order through a delivery app with a 25% commission, uh, of the $40, the app takes 10, the restaurant receives 30. Then with our food cost of 12 and the labor of overhead of 16, that leaves a $2 profit, right? So, and you can see that it's very easy for something to go wrong in the preparation of the meal or anything to have that $2 get lost. So the it's very easy for a restaurateur to get signed up with these apps and then get excited when they do like $50,000 worth of orders in a month. But if you're not making any money on it, does it really make sense to do it? Right. So, which kinds of restaurants actually benefit from this the most? So, restaurants that tend to benefit are the high margin, low labor concepts. So, this is things like pizza, some of the fast casual names, or these new outfits called ghost kitchens. So a ghost kitchen is really just a kitchen and a doorway for the delivery drivers. Like there's no front counter, there's no service, there's no table area. The entire front part of the operation of the restaurant is just not there. Right. These kitchen operators are completely outsourcing the sales, marketing, delivery, revenue, receipts, all that kind of stuff to the apps. So this is like the evolution, right? And I actually live close to one of these ghost kitchens who on the apps appears like 12 different restaurants. So they've got 12 different brands on the apps and they've got 12 different menus, but they're all doing it from one kitchen. And I I don't know the owner, but I should try to meet him because I'd be curious to know how they're doing. Um, Strong branding that people seek out are going to do well in the apps because they're going to go looking for that particular brand, and that brand that could be a well-known local brand, but they won't have to spend as much on promoting themselves. For example, um, you need to have capacity to handle more volume, right? If you don't have extra capacity to serve up more meals, then adding this sales channels may not be the right idea for you. Um, then there's data-driven operators who want to learn more. Of course, they might be able to benefit from being on these apps. Restaurants that get hurt by these apps, here's a list. So low margin, full service restaurants, right? They've got to bear all of the burden of that front of house activity, and they need every dollar of gross margin in order to make their ends meet. Uh, Places that don't adjust their prices, so they just cut and paste their menu from their real world menu into the app. They're giving away most of their margin to the app operator. Independent operators with weak negotiating power. So they can't negotiate for better terms or pay for premium placements. So they pay high commissions, but they drown in a sea of listings. So they don't really benefit much in any way. And then there's an opportunity for brand risk damage. So if people's experience on the app is not a good one, the brand of your restaurant could be damaged through the way that the app is handling people that are trying to order from you. And Grubhub actually faced regulatory action over taking restaurants that were not signed up and putting them on their app and pretending that they were part of their app, believe it or not. That was reported by The Verge. So the bigger package, right? Here's one really interesting thing that I found when I was doing some research here. Stanford University did a study on the overall demand for takeout food, and what they found was that for every dollar that goes into the delivery apps, it could crowd out 50 cents of in-person dining. So, what does that mean? To me, it means that people have a certain budget of how much they're able to spend on food. And if they spend $100 on delivery apps in a given month, it means that they're not spending $50. So if they used to just spend $100, let me read this here to be clear that I understand this. Studies show online delivery both expands the total market, so it grows the total market, and crowds out some in-person dining. Okay, so if someone used to spend $100 a month eating out and they spend $100 on the app, they will only then spend $50 eating out. So people are spending more on food, but what's happening is the growth in the market, the benefit of the growth is entirely being consumed by the app and going into their profits rather than the restaurant industry. Okay. So I found that interesting. Uh, some of what looks like new sales for restaurant owners is just regular customers now going through a more expensive channel to order the food of the restaurant. So here's a list of things that restaurants could do. So be honest about your numbers. Track app orders separately. Make sure that you're making money with them and make sure that the pricing on the app is going to allow you to continue making money if you're going to use those apps. Um, Menu Engineer your menu specifically for delivery. You don't have to replicate your entire menu. You can just take specific things, maybe with the highest margins or the things that are delivered the best, and you can just put those on. Also, you can ghost kitchen yourself. So there's a pub across the river from me that I go to every once in a while, and they have really great food. And I know that they are on the delivery apps with a completely different restaurant brand in addition to their pub. So they are ghost kitchening themselves, even though they aren't a ghost kitchen. And you could too. This is what famous YouTuber Mr. Beast does, right? He gets local restaurants to fulfill his burger orders for his Mr. Beast burger joint that is advertised on these apps. Um, so strategic pricing, I've mentioned that before. Use apps as lead gen, not your forever channel. So when you make a sale through the app, you put the food in a bag, you close the bag, staple it, right? It goes into the driver's keep warm bag or whatever. You can put in the bag anything you want, right? So put in some dining room promotions, put in some order direct specials that people have to call you or email you or go to your own website to order. Like, take those people that the app has brought to you and bring them to your own channel, which is going to be higher margin and more profitable for you, right? And I see this, for example, with McDonald's. I have the McDonald's app because my kids like to go there, and they're always pushing like coupons to me, but it says dine in only, right? I can only use the coupon if I go to the store, and that's where they get the entire margin from the sale. You may want to build your own ordering and have cheaper delivery. I know many people who've done this, and there's white label ordering tools that you can subscribe to, that you can set up online, get your own app, that kind of thing. I even know groups of restaurants that have gone together in certain cities to create like a city centric competitor to these big delivery apps. And then, if you think about 7 or 8 well-known restaurants getting together and they all promote this one brand, it's because they own it. And they operate kind of like a cooperative between the restaurants, and then they have limited margins for that app, just probably cost recovery basis. And then they get to enjoy more of the profit because there's lower costs. Um, you need to actually sit down and do the math. If your analysis shows negative margin, that you're losing money, then being on the app is essentially just marketing. So you need to think about it that way. Like, would you do a loss leader? Would you do, 50-cent ice cream cones to bring people in the door? Well, that's an example of a loss leader. Would you spend money on a certain kind of advertisement, like on the radio or something, and to see if it would bring in more customers? Sure, you might, but you know that the money you spend with the radio station is like spent money. You can treat the apps in the same way. You can try to use them to bring new people in the door. You consider that, hey, the cost of serving those customers is an advertising spend, but then you've got to make sure that you get those customers and get them into a profitable channel so you can actually make money with them long term. It's like advertising a special on the radio that gets people to come one time and then they never come back. Like it just would be a waste of your money. Um, to summarize, delivery apps can be a tool, but they're not free money. The idea that a restaurant that's not on the apps, all you have to do is put it on the apps and you're going to make more money with it is not necessarily true. You actually have to do a lot of work to figure out if this even makes sense or not, depending on the kind of restaurant that you might be acquiring, for example, or if you own a restaurant and you've looked at these things, you probably have talked with your other restaurant owners, friends, and you've gotten lots of feedback. And in fact, if I've gotten something wrong or correct in this video, I'd love to hear from restaurateurs down below. Um, if you want to understand better business models and understanding, the economics of business, then I would suggest you sign up for my cash flow forecasting and business plan writing program. I teach you, starting from a blank spreadsheet, how to build a complete cash flow forecast for a business, where you actually build a business model where you've got the sales, and I teach you how to create a sales forecast, like how to know what sort of forecasting numbers to put in there, and then to break down the direct costs and when the cash flows are realized, depending on the type of business that you have. In that program, there's 5 different sample companies that I go through. Each one's a very different kind of business with different kinds of cash conversion cycles, et cetera. And so if you really want to understand this stuff and learn it well, I would direct you to bizplanschool.com, where you can learn more about that program. Um, and with that, I'll say thanks very much for coming and joining me today. I have seen a lot of people sign up for delivery apps and become a lot busier with a lot higher revenue, and they don't make any more money. Like, I literally have seen it year after year, the performance of the restaurants, and they get busier, they sell more, but the SDE doesn't seem to change. And so, is it better to be higher volume and make the same money? Like, I don't know. To me, it would invite more risk. Every order is an opportunity for an error. Every order is an opportunity for something expensive like a hamburger to fall on the floor and you have to make a new one, right? Like you want to make sure that if you're going to be serving a customer, that you're going to be making money serving the customer. And with that, I'll say thank you very much, everyone. And
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I prepared for you, You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.